How's it going, you guys? Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Ramon. This is the Dad's Podcast Project. I'll get used to that. It's a new title, and it's going to take some time to get used to saying that. But in today's episode, I kind of wanted to touch on having two sick children recently and sort of some of the things that my wife and I had to sort of, work on together in order to ensure that, we were staying up to snuff and doing the best job that we thought that we could. Looking really blown out. If you're watching the video, I'm sorry. I'm just my camera trying to get this figured out. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into things. So whenever your kids are sick, that's never the best. I mean, it's never a good time to be a parent to sick children. You're trying to do your best to care for them when they need you, but at the same time, you don't really know what to do. It came to an impasse when my son sort of picked up a fever, and we didn't really quite know if he was coming down with the flu or if he was having an ear infection. I mean, some of these things, like an ear infection, we had encountered before, so we know that sometimes fever is attributed to that, but there was also a lot of phlegm. He was coughing a lot, and he was sniffing a lot. And with that, he didn't want to spit that phlegm out. Now, I don't know about some of you guys out there who have children who get sick and they become they build up a lot of mucus. You got to get that out. You can't be swallowing that stuff. And my son, he was very dead set on not wanting to spit that phlegm out. We kept telling him, your stomach hurts because you're not spitting the phlegm out. You want to feel better. You got to get that phlegm out. You got to cough, spit it out. Don't swallow it. And eventually, it makes its way through the body in other ways. And with our daughter, at least, it ends up in the diaper. But with him, after ingesting so much of it, he ended up kind of coughing / mini throwing it up at the same time. So that was definitely a point at which we were like, okay, this is getting way crazy for us. We definitely want to get ahead of this. And the fever for him had lasted, I want to say 2 or maybe 3 days, where it was kind of manageable. It wasn't really over 100.5. It wasn't over 100.5. At the most, maybe it was 101, but it never went past 102. I think doctors said if it's past 102 or if it's higher, go ahead and bring them in. And we're not the type of parents that an ER visit is just like, well, let's wait. It's been sort of our just MO that almost any little thing that has us questioning whether or not things are okay, more than likely we just take them in. And we're no strangers to going to the ER for something that ends up being not that big a deal. But again, for us, we want that peace of mind. We don't know what we're doing. With some respect, we do. But when it comes to our child being ill, we definitely want to go whatever lengths are necessary to ensure that they're feeling their best and that they're being cared for. If anything even reaches outside of the scope of our abilities and we question whether or not they're okay or they're going to be feeling okay, we just make the decision right then and there. So like I said, we've made a couple visits to the ER. Fortunately for us, knock on wood, they've not been serious things. The doctors have usually told us, oh, it's just a minor infection, or, oh, it's just this, that, or the other. So, excuse me. But with this fever was going on for what both my wife and I felt was just far too long. We didn't want to have to go like well into the weekday and have to just still be having our son feel this way. He's full of energy. He's definitely keeps us on our toes. And when he's sick, he just reverts to becoming very sedentary, becoming very quiet, and almost wanted to be cared for as if he was a baby again. He wants to be fed or he wants to be carried. So it's very outside of his personality that he's beginning to develop. So we don't we don't enjoy seeing him like that because we know the way he is when he feels good. So because of that, because the fever went on for longer than my wife and I were comfortable with, my wife went ahead and made an appointment for him to be seen by the doctor, as well as my daughter or our daughter. So they both went in, and lo and behold, the doctor said, "Yeah, they both have ear infections. That's what's going on right now." And I mean, our daughter, we kind of figured she was showing the signs. She was like patting her ear, kind of playing with her hair on one side. So we figured, okay, maybe she's got herself an ear infection, but she wasn't really crying with discomfort. She was like coughing and sniffing or sniffling. So we didn't jump to the conclusion that maybe that's what it was. But with our son, I was more on the side of I think he's developing bronchitis because I used to get bronchitis like almost once a year. Like every year around a certain time. I think it was like allergy season, when I'm like sniffling a lot myself, I would develop bronchitis. And it wasn't until I started taking a proactive approach to relieving myself of that ahead of time by taking things like, Mucinex or whatever, breaking it up and getting it out ASAP before it can, you know, develop into full blown bronchitis. My son, I felt like he was showing some of those symptoms, and sure enough, he also had that. So he had himself an ear infection and bronchitis. So the doctor prescribed some antibiotics and an inhaler for our son, which here my wife is texting me, "Have you ever used an inhaler? Do you know how these things are supposed to be implemented?" And I'm thinking to myself, like, it's like one of those just old school, like he's got to put this thing to his mouth and inhale at the same time. And I'm trying to think of, my son and how cooperative he might want to be or not be with this new thing. He's not really a huge fan when it comes to medicine. So even getting him to take Tylenol at times, it can be trying. We have to sort of set it there, and he'll take it when he's ready to take it, but we can't really force him. So that was one of the things that I was kind of curious about. So how are we going to get him to take this? And to my surprise, the doctor had sent a little kind of a mask thing that goes over his nose and his mouth, and there's a chamber that the inhaler then connects to, and you press the inhaler, the mist goes into this chamber, and then there's two sets of diaphragms, one for the inlet and one for the outlet. So he just has to breathe deep 6 times in and out, and that mist will then get to his lungs, and he won't be drinking his medicine. And then the antibiotic was actually the same for the both of them. However, my son got, I think it was half a tablespoon more, half a teaspoon more in the serving sizes, and they had to take it twice a day. It's like smelled like bubble gum. Not my brother, but my son said it tasted like bubble gum. However, he's not had gum yet, so I don't really know where he's taking that from. But it's just one of those things, you can never really be prepared for all of these things. And my wife and I definitely were. I mean, we were sleeping apart, because either my son was sleeping in the room with her, my daughter, I would be watching her, vice versa. So, it's those times where we as parents, we step up to answer that call and to try to do our best to care for our children. My son, he's never had bronchitis. He's never had to deal with things like excessive phlegm to this level. So he doesn't really know uh, how to combat it himself. He doesn't know the methods with which to go ahead and blow your nose, go ahead and spit that out, go ahead and take this medication on your own. These things are going to help you. So we have to, even though we know it's something that they need to do and we know it's something that's going to help them, we also have to be patient because it's something completely new to both of them. With our daughter, I mean, you put the little syringe the plastic syringe that they provide you with, and I mean, she enjoyed the flavor. She was actually getting upset when it was like out. So she would get her little serving and she would just be, she would just be drinking it down. And then as soon as it was out, she was looking angry, like, I wanted more of that. And so we had to kind of, calm her down and make sure, excuse me, either she had a bottle ready or something, because we didn't want her to think that this medicine is your meal. And then with our son, I mean, we made a game of it. We told him, okay, you and your sister are going to race to see who finishes your medicine first. And in the beginning, he would just sit there and he would stare at the little cup because he's outgrown those little plastic syringes now. He's on to the little serving cup so he can just give it to himself. And yeah, in the beginning, it was just, he would sit there, he would stare at it. He didn't want to do much with it. And then after a while, he started, like, right away, he would just take it and he would start taking that medicine on his own. So I think he got into the groove of things relatively quickly. He understood this is what's going on. This is what we need to do. So it became pretty easy for him after that. And the inhaler, I mean, he didn't seem to have a problem with it either. I helped him use that inhaler more than once, and he didn't seem to have a problem with it. So that was actually a good thing. It can be difficult when you have a child that is reluctant or even resistant to wanting to take medicine. It can be tough because, again, it's what they may need if they're feverish, and that providing them with some Tylenol can help that. Or in this case, if it's bronchitis and he needs to take an antibiotic, it's like you're young, you're little, you may not be able to combat this. And bronchitis, for those of you who don't know, can develop into pneumonia. Now, I don't know much about pneumonia. What I do know is that it's like an old time disease, like from back in the Oregon Trail days, where people would die if they got pneumonia. So what I think about is, even with our modern medicine, when I hear something about pneumonia, I just don't want it. I don't want my son to have it. I don't want anybody in my family to get that. Even if we're at the technological and medical level of being able to overcome that, if it's preventable, then I'm just going to do whatever it is to prevent that, because I don't want to be on that level, not even myself, not even for my son. So I knew going into it, like, he was going to need to take these antibiotics. And again, just feeling very fortunate that he wasn't hesitant. He wasn't fighting it. He wasn't really resisting it, and kind of just talking him through it. This is what you need to take. This is going to make you feel better, and making a game of it. I think that with anything, it takes patience. It requires patience, at least in my experience with my children. There's other kids out there that I hear about, and you tell them to do something and they'll do it. Or, I mean, their parents tell them to do something and they'll do it. And then there's other kids, they just throw a full-on conniption fit. And I'm not here to judge, these kids, that's their personality. And I feel like, at least with my children, it's my job to then try to find the best way to approach them and that personality. So, like I mentioned before, my son, reluctant and very resistant to wanting to take medication. Now, you can go the hard way and you can try to force your child to take these medicines, but what is that instilling in them when you have to hold them and try to make them take a medicine? You know it's good for them. But I ask myself, is he developing a resentment towards me? Is he developing a resentment towards medication itself? I mean, if his whole experience with taking medicine is just this uncomfortable fear slash fighting type thought when it comes to it, I mean, these are like, again, more foundational pieces to how he reacts when it comes to taking medication. He might look at it like a very scary thing or something that he just hates because when he was 3, he was being forced to take it. So I have to, as his parent, set as much time aside as he needs in order to work with him on taking these things. That it's like he might try to go back and forth with me. He even tries to negotiate sometimes. He doesn't that much anymore with medications, but I mean, I've been through a whole lot of these things with him already. I've been through the being yelled at and pointed at and trying to pick him up, and hug him, tell him it's okay, been hit. And it's like, okay, that's not how he wants to be approached. So then we go to talking it out. We go to making a bargain. I've done things where he'll need to take a little cup of medication, or like he when he was having his fever and the doctor recommended to give him some Tylenol, he didn't want to take it. And he'll hold it like so weak, like, and I'll tell him, like, don't drop it. If anything you do, do not drop it. Do not drop that medicine. Because I think that he thinks if I drop it, then I won't get any more. And so I have to preemptively tell him, like, do not drop that medicine. And it's like, yeah. So I tell him, don't drop that medicine. Let's go get my medicine too, and we'll take it together. So kind of making it like, you're not on your own here. Let's do this together. And so we go to the kitchen, and I take one of those little caps that go on top of our daughter's baby bottle, and I fill it with a little bit of water. I try to sneak water in there. And even though he sees, oh, that's just water, Dad, I tell him, no, this is my medicine. I'm going to take mine and you take yours. Let's do it at the same time. So sure enough, we're going kind of back and forth, like half picking it up. Like, come on, you got to take it. No, you take it. And eventually he ended up taking it on his own. And then I try to, shower him. Excuse me. I try to shower him with praise after that. I try to tell him, oh, that's a really great job. I'm really proud of you. I'm happy that you're taking this medicine, and instilling the knowledge in him that this is something that's going to make you feel better. Do you want to continue to feel the way that you're feeling now? Because if you do not, these are the things you have to do in order to feel better. And you may not know that they're the things that you have to do because you've never been here before, but you have to learn that you need to trust me and that I'm going to help you through this, that these are the things that you'll need to do. So it'll be interesting to see how our daughter, when she gets a little bit older, approaches some of these things. I like to think that my son is definitely putting me through the rigorous training process of what it is to be a dad, and what it is to try to negotiate with a 3-year-old. And I mean, not to take anything away from it, it's very fun. It's very entertaining at times. It can be exhausting too. None of this is easy, and it's one of those things that, as a parent, when you have to take care of your children, like you have to take care of them. But when you really have to step up to the plate, when they're feeling ill, when they're not well, and they really need you, and they can't convey what it is exactly that they need, you got to run through the list. And if you don't have grandma and grandpa to turn to, if your friends have not been in this predicament where their kids act completely different, I mean, you have to trust in your gut and how you're feeling. If you feel like, you know what, one day from morning till night, sort of up and down with a fever is too long for you, don't take anybody else's opinion. Listen to what it is that your gut is telling you. And if it means taking your child to the ER or scheduling a doctor's appointment the very next day, if not the same day, then that's what you do. Trust in yourself. And just try not to have too many doubts. There's a million and one ways to approach these things. And you're going to get a million and one ways from other people to approach them. And at the end of the day, it's the decisions that you decide to make for your children that are essentially and hopefully the best ones. So, like I said, for my wife and I, we felt it was going on too long. Felt like, man, is he going to get better? So we up and just made the call. Got him an appointment. Found out it was an ear infection. Had bronchitis as well for our son. Got antibiotics within a day or two of antibiotics, because I've had antibiotics myself for bronchitis, and boom, like the next day, you're already feeling a million times better. And just slowly seeing him like coming back to his old self, so to speak. So it was one of the things that we encountered. And there'll be many more to come in the future, I'm sure. But for now, that's how we approach this one. I don't know if I should be like dating these. I mean, these are, excuse me, these are supposed to be a catalog of knowledge for my kids. So I don't really know how I'm supposed to, I guess we'll figure it out on the way. But March 28th, 2019, my son is 3, my daughter almost 1. So that's where we're at right now, you guys. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. I want to thank you for staying on board with this new transition in my life with my podcasting and lending my voice to my children who will be future parents someday, and even to my future self, to know that as a grandparent, sometimes they forget what they were really like when they were parents. And they're not to be talking bad on anything, but sometimes they might put themselves in the light where they were holier than thou, when in reality, your recollection as their children was a little bit different. So hopefully this is something that, keeps me humble, keeps me in check. And I'm sure my opinions and my experiences are going to continue to change as I continue to grow and as my children continue to grow. It's just one of the beauties of life. So again, thank you guys for taking the time to listen. And as always, till next time, see ya.